What it do, golf fans? Welcome back to the Turn Dollars Golf Podcast. This is Liam, and alongside me is not Jack. We have Christian in this week. Christian is going to co-host. Christian is another golf nerd, probably not to the same level as Jack, but if you haven't been on the podcast long enough, nobody is at Jack's level, especially according to Jack. So Chris is going to help out this week. Overall, Sony Open, YLI Country Club, Nick Taylor was the winner. Christian, what'd you think of the week? It was kind of crazy, if you ask me.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. I really thought that it was going to be JJ Spawn and Jaeger. It's going to be that final for that playoff. And then they just kind of, he made that. They kept talking about how Jaeger switched from that driver because he pulled it left. I believe it was on 16. And then he went 3-wood, went in the bunker, and then just screwed him over. So, but it did give us a really good playoff, though. I was really happy to. And then Nick Taylor, though, what did he do? He chipped an eagle. What was that, on like 17 or 16?
Yeah.
It was that I texted you guys. I was like, okay, and like he had that like aura around him that he was going to win that thing, and he did. So I'm not surprised. But overall, I thought it was a really entertaining Sunday for golf.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So Nick Taylor has 5 wins on the PGA Tour. 3 of them have come via playoff, which is kind of a crazy stat because it's like you're just sitting there and you're like, yeah, I don't win a ton of times, but when I do, it's gonna be a sweat fest and extra holes because like, what's the fun in doing it easy? So that's kind of crazy though that he's done this because he did. It's almost slightly disappointing that it wasn't more higher profile names. If you follow the PGA Tour closely, like Nico Echevarria, used to be called Nacho Echevarria to anybody that knew the good old days, but he goes by Nico now. And then Nick Taylor, obviously, he's a bit of a name. He beat
Tommy Fleetwood at the Canadian Open.
Yeah. Was that last year or 2 years ago? I think 2 years.
I think that was 2 years. Yeah, that would have been 2023. He did that iconic moment. Yeah. So, and also back to your note, he's 3-0 in playoffs, by the way.
Is he 3-0 now in playoffs?
He's 3-0. Yeah, they showed that stat on the broadcast. I was like, oh, that is very interesting. So I don't want to go in a playoff against Nick Taylor if I'm.
No, yeah, I for whatever reason he seems to show up on the playoffs, and it's just very funny to see. But overall, super fun week. Again, I wish more high profile names were in there. I wish there was, Hideki's and Corey Connors and Tom Kim's. I will dig into all of these guys now. Christian can take a few minutes here, sit back and relax because I got to get through all Jack's stuff. So notable guys to miss the cut. There's a pretty big list, honestly. Mackenzie Hughes, Seamus Power, Harris English, Nick Hardy, Chris Kirk, Joel Damon, the GOAT. Luke Clanton missed a 4-footer on 18 to make the cut on Friday, which is brutal if you had him in anything. Corey Connors, Cam Davis, Davis Thompson, Daniel Berger, Siwoo Kim, JT Poston, Billy Horschel, and Austin Eckroat are all just some of the bigger names that missed the cut. You could argue that some of them aren't as big as others, but like they're all pretty big names in the field that they were in, that's for sure. Some highlights of some guys that Jack and I were all over last week as far as low-priced options. I like Frankie Capon. Capon, he finished T45, which you might be like, that's not that good, but he was like 6,600. So respectfully, you would gladly take a T45, especially for that low price. Patrick Fishburne, who I mentioned, who finished T6. Mark Hubbard, who finished T21. And then we called the Mackenzie Hughes missed cut. I did not anticipate he was going to finish 10th from last. That's for sure. But I do like the fact that we were able to call that one out. Some notable misses that Jack and I had. We thought Corey Connors was going to play well. He missed the cut. Tom Kim technically missed. He finished 65th. You really weren't excited about that one. And then Daniel Berger ended up missing the cut as well. So that is Sony. Let me go through our DraftKings, FanDuel's bets, and winners. So Jack didn't have either of his lineups here, but I think I beat him in both, so it doesn't really matter. For my lineups, I had Tom Kim, T65, Robert McIntyre, T53, Eckroat, miscut, Harry Hall, T10, Daniel Berger, miscut, Frankie Capon, T45. I did win money in that, just barely. In FanDuel, I had Corey Connors, who missed the cut, Robert McIntyre, T53, Harry Hall, T10. Michael Thorbjornsen withdrew about an hour prior to Thursday, so I ended up swapping to Tom Hoagie, who finished T45. And then Daniel Berger miscut, Joe Highsmith miscut. As far as bets, Jack went 2 for 6. He had Ben Griffin making the cut for 2.5 unit or 2.25 units. He had Seb Straka making the cut for 2.25 units. Those are both wins. And then he had Tim Whiting top 40. That was a miss. He withdrew. He had Segura top 40, and that was a miss. He had Corey Connors top 30. That was a miss. And he had Max McGreevy top 40. That was also a miss. So in a grand total, he lost 2 units on the week. He is now down 6 units overall, which he's not thrilled about. And in the parentheses, he put, "Why do I suck at golf betting right now?" which he's not very thrilled about. So don't give him too much grief. He's usually crushed at this point in the season anyways. And he's only down 6 units. Knowing him, he'll be back in the positives in like 2 weeks. So he'll be fine. On my end, I also did 6 bets. I went 3 and 3. I had Daniel Berger over Mackenzie Hughes at -110. That was a win. Harry Hall over Ben Griffin. That was also a win. I had Robert McIntyre over Taylor Pendrith. That was a loss. I had Austin Eckroat over Sahith Theegala. That was a loss. I had Harry Hall top 40. That was a win. And I had Daniel Berger top 40. That was a loss. So all in all, with 3 wins, 3 losses, I lost 0.06 units on the week. Real big heater. Tough one to lose, tough losing 0.06 units, but I think I'll survive somehow. So we made it work. Then we get into winners. Jack's winners included Corey Connors, who missed the cut. Ben Griffin, whose number is escaping me, and I don't seem to have it here. And then Kurt Kitayama, who finished in around T40. I had Tom Kim, who again was T65. Harry Hall, who was T10, and Daniel Berger, who missed the cut. Jack's wildcard lost. He didn't say what it was, but it involved Tim Whiting, who withdrew. And then I had Matt Schmidt over Steven Yeager, Thomas Rosenmueller, and Jeremy Paul. Turns out Steven Yeager is really good at the Sony, and that one never really stood a chance. So, deep breaths. All right, that was the Sony. Chris, any other thoughts on the Sony, or are we going right into the Amex?
I cannot believe that Jack is -6. Every time I would listen to this podcast, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, Jack's up 86 units." So hearing that is actually no wonder I'm in today. Yeah, this is unprecedented.
Yeah, this is not normal for Jack. He's not very happy about it, and I have a gut feeling that is part of the reason why he's not on the podcast today is because he's very pissed at himself. I say that sarcastically. He's traveling, but he's not happy either. As far as this week, I'll tell you now, Jack has probably about 13 to 14 total bets. So he's coming at it with a vengeance now. He's determined to get back in the positive with as many bets as he has. All right, we're moving on to the Amex. And usually I would go over the course preview, but Christian has all the notes on this week. So we're going to let him read through it.
Yeah, so the American Express is held across 3 diverse courses at the PGA West grounds of La Quinta, California. The Pete Dye Stadium course is a par 72, totaling 7,100 yards. Then the La Quinta Country Club, which is another par 72, which is just over 7,000 yards. And the Nicholas Tournament course, which is a par 72, just over 7,100 yards. With the course being played each week across 3 with the course being played across 3 courses, the cut will happen on Saturday instead of the normal Friday, meaning each golfer will play the 3 rounds, and then there'll be the cut, and then the final will be at the stadium course. Obviously, last year we had the first amateur to win a PGA Tour event since, which I didn't know this until they started talking about it on the broadcast, was Phil Mickelson in 1991. Like, what a crazy stat. What a interesting thing to be a part of. There's like Phil Mickelson and then Nick Dunlap. If that is any foreshadowing for a potential career Nick Dunlap might have, that is very impressive. But each course demands slight different style of golf, but the one commonality is that the putters not hitting a high percentage of greens will struggle to make enough birdies to keep in pace with the leaders. The winning score averages close to 30 under par, and I believe last year it was around 29 or 28 under par, which is crazy. So it's definitely going to be a birdie fest. And another note here is that all the shot link data on this course comes from the stadium course. So keep that in mind when looking at the data. So there's nothing for the other two.
Yeah. There's only the one course that gets the data. It's usually one of the first 3 days, and then obviously the last day's worth of data. But no, it's all really good to know. It's very nice because I'm usually the one that has to go through that, so I'm like in the zone trying to like read off of my notes. So it's fun to be able to just like sit here and like hang out for a little bit of time and like not have to worry about that feature.
I want to make a note here that the thing where I flubbed up, I believe you have a typo in it. So
I probably did throw a typo in at one point in time. I have no qualms about it. Words are hard sometimes. If any of you are on the podcast, I can't say names properly, let alone try and type things out. So I'm sure I made a typo and it made it more difficult for Christian, but we made it work. All right, with that, we are going to get into the DraftKings pricing. Christian, I will kind of call out some of the names that stick out to me, and you can kind of comment on some of the guys that stick out to you. Just one highlight, Xander Schauffele, as of about 45 minutes ago or so, just withdrew from the Amex. So he is the most expensive golfer on DraftKings by over $1,000. So keep that in mind that you are going to have to go another route if you wanted Xander Schauffele this week. The other two guys in this range are Justin Thomas and Sung Jae. I'll highlight JT, and then Chris, if you want to roll through Sung Jae. So JT played this event just one time in the last 5 years, and it was last year. He actually finished tied third alongside Xander. He did finally gain with the putter, by the way, 2 weeks ago at the Century. During that sequence, though, he somehow lost off the tee. I don't really see his driver struggling again like that this week. I like the idea of going to him because I don't think he was – well, let's be clear. I like the idea of going for him before Xander withdrew. I thought he was going to go very much under the radar, with Xander being really the main choice and those wanting to be fancy going to Sung Jae. So I thought he was sneaky for a while. He's now less sneaky because it's just him or Sung Jae. But I don't foresee Justin Thomas losing again off the tee. And again, I think this is going to be a really good tournament and again, a really good year for him. So.
And then for Sungjae Im, he's played pretty well recently. He has 4 straight T13 or better finishes, which is not including the President's Cup loss. And during his stretch, he has gained in every shots gained statistic outside with the putter at the Hero. I think he's a great option this week and somebody that Jack would absolutely be high on right now. At this event, Sungjae has never finished worse than T25 in 6 starts. That's actually ridiculous. That is a fantastic, I think a pick to add into your lineup.
Yeah, that's one where I am sure Jack would sit there and salivate over. He'd be like, Sungjae, I'm all over it this week. We're going crazy. Sungjae all the way. So I actually really like that idea that Jack would go to him. Do you have a preference on one you choose over the other, JT versus Sung Jae?
JT, he did a T3 last year, but I like the driver is a little concerning, but you'd think he would have worked on it the last 2 weeks. So maybe he's going to come in a little bit more confident. Yeah. But I mean, the stats don't lie. That T25 in 6 starts is a ridiculous stat. So I guess if you want to, I'm not sure what the price difference is, but if you really want to be conservative. Yeah, so I guess I would go Sungjae Im. That's just me.
I get it. I think Sungjae Im concerns me because he has those fluke weeks where he doesn't do very well, and I feel like JT has turned the corner. So I'm going to go JT, but it's still 1A, 1B, so I totally get it regardless of which way you go. All right, well, at that point, into the 9K range we go. We're starting Sam Burns, 9,800. We've got Cantlay, 96, Finau, 95, Clark, 94, Tom Kim, 93, Max Grazerman, 92, Siwoo Kim, 91, and Cam Young at 9,000. I will go through Patrick Cantlay. If you look at some of his starts here, he actually has a really good record at this course. He has finishes of T15 and 11th. His big issue is that he really hasn't been playing the best golf as of recently. I think a lot of people are going to try and get ahead of it because of his history here. But again, his struggles have been just a little bit too wayward, and he's just not really putting the way I'd want him to putt prior to this tournament. I think he can do well, but I think he's going to get overpassed and overlooked by other more popular options this week. Let me talk a second on Max Grazerman. Some people will probably like the likes of Wyndham Clark this week, but I actually think that Max Grazerman would be a better option. In his last 14 starts, he's not finished worse than T33. He's also gained with the putter and strokes gained off the tee in all of those starts except for one, which was the one he finished T33 on. His weakness is going to be the around the green play, but I don't think that'll hurt him as much this week. So I'd like Max Grosserman if you want to go to him this week. Chris, do you have any thoughts on Sam Burns?
Yeah. So when I think of putting and opportunities gained, I tend to think of Sam. He has 6 great starts of T14 or better. That's ridiculous. And then his approach play has been starting to teeter off the past 3 starts, one being the President's Cup, but his finishes have still shown that he has his putting ability. It's a risky play this week, but Sam has the upside to play here as well. Yeah, do you think just because it's a birdie fest, I mean, you're more like stat inclined that it's like you're looking at people that can really putt well on this like on these 3 courses, or do you think it's not as relevant this week?
Yeah, I think putting is definitely going to be important this week. I think there's 2 or 3 really big things I'm looking for when I'm looking at my lineup options. I want to look for somebody that putts very well, has a lot of birdie opportunities, and has at least solid irons. Again, you want to be able to hit the green. But if a guy is good at bogey avoidance, that doesn't do a whole heck of a lot of good here because the finishing number is going to be 30 under. You need to be able to make birdies to try and keep pace with people. So I think definitely it's all about getting those birdie opportunities at the end of the day. So I'll say one highlight here on Cam Young. I've heard a lot of Cam Young chatter this week, that's for sure. And I'm okay with it, but I just want people to kind of pump the brakes. He gained over 8 strokes with the putter at the Century, which is great. I love seeing, Cam Young gain 8 strokes with the putter. That's the most he'd done in an entire calendar year. Like, he doesn't usually gain 8 strokes with the putter. He also lost 5 strokes on approach the same week at the Century. And he's also lost on approach in each of his last 4 starts. It's not exactly like he's just been firing on all cylinders. Like, I get wanting to be early, but I think I'm a little hesitant on getting to Cam Young just because of, like, I get it. He putted well that one week, but it's not, I don't know if it's fully there yet. He's also not cheap. He's still $9K. So it's like.
Right. I think I'd want to see some more, like, if he does it again this week, then I'd be more inclined to add him in my lineup next week. But until then, it's like, that seems like the fact that you said that his best putting in a calendar year, it's only one other start. It's like, that's kind of almost like, it's a green flag that he's doing better, but like, it's almost a red flag because it's like, I want to see some more consistency before you want to actually take him on.
Yeah, the likelihood that he gets another 8 strokes putting again, if he does, I'll eat my words on that one. But it's not high. I like my chances on that bet, so I'm okay with it. All right, into the 8K range we go. We've got Davis Thompson up top, all the way down to Nick Taylor at 8,000. So we'll highlight some of these guys. Who do I got first? Davis Thompson is somebody I'll mention quickly. He's 8,900. I'm usually very high on him. I'm okay to pump the brakes on him now. I totally get it. He's lost strokes gained with the putter and on approach in 4 of his last 5 starts. He just looks more human. So I totally get it. I think this is probably the week to stay away from him. And then knowing the fact that I'm going to stay away from him, he'll probably finish about top 10. Just because that's kind of how that rolls. But I'm all right with it. Christian, you like Nick Taylor, right? That's what I'm thinking of. Words are hard. I'm a little worried.
Yeah. No, I like Nick Taylor this week. Let me pull up my my notes. I did a little research on him. I'm going with my gut this week that he's not going to have a winning hangover, but rather a fire under him. Like, after having that winning feeling at the Sony Open, I'm not necessarily expecting a win, but like, I think just like a good performance, like for sure, definitely like made cut. I think probably would not be surprised any better. I mean, I guess that's pretty conservative saying at least a T40 or better. But like Liam, you told me earlier that he, every tournament that he's won the following week, he's made the cut.
Yep. Yeah. No,
so stats don't lie.
Yeah, the stats don't lie. He'll probably make the cut. Do I think he's going back to back? Not likely.
No,
it would be the first time in a calendar year that somebody's gone back to back, or I guess calendar year in a couple months. But yeah, it happens more than we think. So I get it. I'm going to talk a little bit about JJ Spaun. This is a really high price point, I feel like, for Spaun. When you look at his data, you can kind of get why. He's really good with the putter, and he's solid on approach. He has 1 missed cut and 8 T30s or better finishes in his past 12 starts. So I get why we're going to him, but I feel like we're also getting JJ Spawn at the top of his price point. 8,600 does not give you a lot of price point to work with. I see most weeks where he's in like the low sevens to even sometimes the high sixes. So 8,600 for him just seems crazy. I will also mention Harry Hall. He actually lost strokes on approach last week at the Sony, but he still finished top 10 because he was, I think, third in the field in putting. He gained 6.5 strokes with the putter. He has 5 straight T14 or better finishes, and he has not lost with the putter in his last 12 starts.
Wow,
which is kind of a crazy stat. So it's just something very interesting to keep in mind when it comes to that data. Last guy I'll mention is Will Zalatoris at 8,400. Yeah, I know. We're laughing because it's Will Zalatoris, and we played this game with him all the time, and it's a dangerous game. But he's finished T41 or better in 5 straight starts, and he's actually gained with the putter in 4 of them, which is very not Will Zalatoris like. His approach play has never been a problem, so therefore, if his putter's good and he's still got good approach play, he's an option this week. If you're in one where you're single entry, the top 2 or 3 guys win all the money, he's an option to go to. If you are in a 50-50 or a double up, I would not recommend putting Will Zalatoris in your lineup. I think there are much safer options that have similar upside. Any thoughts? You still like Nick Taylor the most in this one, right?
Yeah, I think I like Nick Taylor, but yeah, you're right. I think Will Zalatoris. I don't remember what he got at the Century, but he was kind of in it though, and then he teared off a little bit. So you're right though. It is playing with fire though with this with Will, because we don't know where I don't really fully know where his game is at right now at the moment.
Yeah.
Like you said, like if he can get hot with that broomstick, maybe. But I mean, I think he hold on, wait. I think I have a note, or I had a note. I believe he made the cut last year at this event, and it did fairly well. So I don't know. Yeah, it's such an iffy. It's like you said, it's playing with fire. It could go either way, or he could have a missed cut, or he could easily give you a top 20, and you'd be like, cool, this is great.
Let me ask you this. So he's got a guy on top and a guy underneath him that I know you mentioned to me before the podcast. He's got Nick Dunlap right above him, and he's got Eric Cole right below him. Do you like either of those guys more than? Will?
I think I would choose for sure. I think Nick Dunlap.
Okay.
And let me tell you why.
All
Again,
right.
this is I first off, I didn't love the 55th finish at the Century, but when I actually looked into those rounds, it was just his first round. He shot over par. Everything else he shot, he was getting some birdies. It wasn't obviously like Hideki where he was just getting, half a dozen birdies every round.
Yeah, breaking records. Yeah.
Right. He wasn't like breaking records, let me be clear. But I like that it's his like first homecoming to a tournament that he won and made history at. I think there's going to be a lot of good vibes, but now thinking about it, it could be a little bit of pressure as well. That like kind of the expectation, I feel like a lot of people, at least the casual like myself, is like, oh, like he should win. I mean, I know that's like a crazy thing to think about, but like they're going to be pushing that, I feel like, on the broadcast. However, I do like that he's coming off a T10 at Sony last week, and Liam helped me verify with this. When I was looking at the statistics, he was number 1 in strokes gained putting at the Sony Open last week at like plus 7.6, which is crazy. So I think there is a lot of stuff that, like, even if he doesn't win, I think he's a very, very conservative bet that he's going to do well for you in this versus like Will. I don't know.
Well, and then Eric Cole doesn't have the driving distance, but he's got a good putter, and I know he's played well here in his history. So I definitely think Eric Cole is probably another safer floor. Probably,
right.
My guess is not as high of a ceiling, but a safer floor.
Right. I mean, he's coming off like what he got he placed 5th last week. So like he's coming off a pretty good week. So I think that's a pretty good bet as well.
There you go. I am realizing I'm looking down in the 7K range, and one of Jack's bets has just withdrawn. So I have to go through and change that. We have Nico Echevarria, 7,900, who again was in the playoff. Would think, wow, I didn't realize this. They're back to back in their DraftKings pricing. That's funny because Nick Taylor's 8,000, Echevarria is 7,900. But Echevarria is 7,900 all the way down to Joe Highsmith. I know that name. Who the heck is R. Gerard? Ryan Gerard. Good for you, man. I have no idea who you are. I'm so sorry. Sorry, Gerard.
It's like he listens to the podcast. He's like, I'm waiting for them to please mention me on the pod. Please leave them.
I know. I'm a horrible person. What can I say? First thing I will mention, Denny McCarthy, who Jack had a top 40 bet on, has withdrawn based here on DraftKings, so that's good to know.
Really?
According to DraftKings, he has. Yeah, undisclosed. Is withdrawn from the field at the Amex. So good to know on that one. I'm going to start off with Ben Griffin, who's 7,800. He actually models really well at this on these courses. He's not a long hitter of the ball, but he plays well on easy courses where he can basically use his streaky putting ability and is reliant on his short game to do well. He's coming in on solid form as well. He's got 5 straight finishes, all better than T45. He's also got 2 starts here. He finished T39 and T9. So he's a solid option this week, especially at 7,800. I like him for the price point. So that's good. I'm going to talk about Keith Mitchell, who I am less high on. I'm just not high on him. He's missed 4 of his last 5 cuts. He also has lost in all statistical categories in terms of strokes gained in 3 of those missed cuts. It just seems like he's got a lot of things he's trying to solve when it comes to his game. I mean, he finished T30 last week, and I get it if you want to go to him. I would prefer to again be late to the likes of Keith. Wow, late to the likes of Keith Mitchell as opposed to early. The reason why somebody would probably like him and why he's probably priced at this point though, is he's played here 3 times and made the cut each time. He's also got a T9 and a T22 in the past 2 years. So I get into him. I get why you'd choose him, but his recent form is just not pretty. Christian, do you want to highlight Mark Hubbard just because he's Mark Hubbard?
We're not going to spend much time on you, Mark. Sorry, bud. He's under $7,500, and he always makes it to the weekend. So he's a pretty good option if you're just looking for down at the bottom of your lineup and you just need somebody to fill in there right there. I mean, that's a pretty good thing that, he seems to make the cut. So as long as you're looking, if that's all you need, Mark Hubbard is your man.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about polar opposites, both Keith Mitchell and Mark Hubbard are 7,400. Keith Mitchell might finish top 5 or bottom 5. Mark Hubbard is going to finish that solid like T45 at the end of the day. And it's just 2 totally opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right,
right. Jesper Svensson. Say hello to the new best Svensson probably on the PGA Tour, which is crazy. He's a Norwegian. And his numbers are no, he's not Norwegian. He's Swedish. I'm sorry, he's Swedish. No, they're close. They're close proximity. His numbers are actually pretty hard to find. He's been a European tour guy for a while. He's actually pretty similar to Keith Mitchell in the sense that he struggled on approach last week at the Sony. But he also finished top 10 there, and he's able to putt much better than Keith Mitchell. He actually gained 6 strokes last week at the Sony doing so. So if you're interested in somebody way at the bottom of this price point, Jesper Svensson's a good option. Christian, I know you had a highlight on why you didn't like Daniel Berger, right?
Oh, yeah. So he's actually ranked outside the top 150 in several scrambling metrics.
Okay.
That's not good.
No, that's rough. There's like 175 people in that data category. So I'm being like bottom 5 to 10% is crazy.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous. So, but the strokes gained putting last year was 163rd at negative .404 at PGA West at La Quinta, the course where birdies, remind you, this is a birdie fest. You need birdies on this course. Yeah. So I think he's just going to struggle to keep up with the pace. If that's just not going to be good here.
He is more expensive than Mark Hubbard and Keith Mitchell, by the way, just to clarify. Is
he really?
He's 7,500, and then Mark Hubbard and Keith Mitchell are both 7,400. So I am staying off of Daniel Berger, but keep that in mind.
Please fade Daniel Berger this week. That is crazy. Pick either of those 2 other people, you're going to be fine. But that's actually insane. But to be fair, if I didn't hear any of the stuff that we just went over, I would be like, oh, Daniel Berger, I recognize that guy. I'll pick him. I'm sure there's people that are probably going to do that.
if you're at 7,500 and you can get to Daniel Berger and you're like, I just don't want those two guys below, spend an extra $300 and go get Ben Griffin is all I'm saying. So,
yeah.
All right. I talked about Svensson. Oh, Jackson Subar, who's another name not a lot of people have probably heard of. He's at, I think it's 7,000 exactly. He's kind of been on like proverbial heater. He's made 6 straight cuts going all the way back to the Korn Ferry Tour. He also then goes to Hawaii where he gained a combined 11 strokes on both approach and putting and finished T6. This week with this price point, you're kind of looking for birdies and putting and approach play. He gives all 3 of those. I'm not telling you he's going to like crush it this week, but he did all 3 of those last week to Sony, and he's done them on the Korn Ferry Tour for a while, and he's exactly 7,000. So if you get a made cut out of him, you're quite happy. So with that, let's get into the 6K range. We have Adam Schenk at 6,900 all the way down to Camilo Villegas. I reckon. Oh, Kisner's 6,000. There we go.
Kisner.
Kiz. This ain't no hobby. So, all right. Christian, I think you liked, who did you like in this range again? McCarty?
Yeah, you told me to take on McCarty on this one.
Yes. So Matt McCarty, I wanted to say, was a really low price in here. I'm sticking. Oh, he's 6,900. Yeah, that's who you liked. But you liked him because he was he's well known. He's won tournaments recently too, or not won tournaments, but he was top 10, and he's made a lot of cuts.
Yeah, no, he made well, obviously a no cut. It's funny they say the no cuts for like 2 out of 2. It's like, well, isn't the Century not a? Oh wait, is there a cut now? Right.
There's no cut in the Century. It's still
right. So there's no cut. So it's like a point that's not accurate. They need to take that out. So it's kind of misleading. But to be fair, though, I mean, he did a 53rd, which isn't that good, and the 65th.
In a really good field. The Century's.
To be fair, yeah, you have a point. The field is obviously way more stronger.
He's also very good with approach play, and he's got a very streaky putter. So he's another good option this week if you want to get to McCarty. I will highlight a couple of guys. Some I like more than others. You got Frankie Capon, who I mentioned last week. He had 3 really good rounds at the Sony. His Saturday was absolutely atrocious. I think he shot like 4 over. If he doesn't shoot 4 over on Saturday, he's finishing top 25 probably. So regardless, he still made the cut, and honestly, that's all you're really looking for. He still also had a really good putting performance. He's only $200 more than he cost last week, so he's still under 7K. So again, I think he's a very good 6th option if you want to go that route. I probably like McCarty a little bit better in terms of name value, but Frankie Capon is a good number. There is Matt Kuchar, who I don't like saying because he's not a good person, but he finished T21 last week at the Sony, so I will have to bring up his name. In the past 36 rounds, he's gained on both approach and putting to the field. So he is an option here, albeit, again, not my first choice. So you can go to Kuchar if you want. Last guy I'll mention is a bit of a flyer on Carson Young. The biggest challenge with Carson is he doesn't have a lot of good distance. He tends to do better on shorter and easier courses, which is PGA West. He has really good accuracy when it comes to off the tee and on approach, and he's a net positive in all his last 36 round strokes gained metrics outside of around the green. So I like him over Kuchar this week. I probably like Capon and McCarty more. He did finish T17 last year, though, Carson Young.
Whoa.
So he's got a little history, and I think he's, 6,600? 67. So he's a viable option if you want to go that route. All right. With that, I would normally say, Jack, talk to me about your FanDuel lineups. Jack's not here to talk about his FanDuel lineups. I'll go through my DraftKings pricing or lineup really quickly. Then we'll do Chris's FanDuel lineup, then my FanDuel lineup, then Jack's bets, then my bets, then winners, then Jack's winners. Chris, if you want to throw out a winner, you're more than welcome to if somebody comes to mind. And then Jack's wild card and my wild card. So my DraftKings lineup, I'm going to start off with Justin Thomas at 10,400. I have Max Grazerman at 9,200. I have Harry Hall at 8,800. Ben Griffin at 7,800. Jackson Suber at 7,000. And then Frankie Capon at 6,800. Chris, what does your FanDuel lineup look like?
Yeah, so my FanDuel lineup, so these are going to be the pricing, so it's going to be a little bit different than the DraftKings, just so you guys know. But I have Nick Dunlap. I'm riding the Dunlap train. I'm aboard the Express at $10,200. Then I have Eric Cole at $10,100. I'm riding Nick Taylor coming off another win, hoping that he does pretty well this week at $9,600. And then I originally had Xander Schauffele, but like Liam said, he recently just withdrew. Literally like probably an hour before recording this podcast. So I'm going with JT at 12,400, and then I'm riding with Ben Griffin, just like Liam, at 9,700, and then I'm going with Matt McCarty at 8,000.
All right, there we go. I like that lineup. Sorry, I was writing that down as he was going, so that way I can keep track of it for next week, just for the fun of it to see how it does. For my FanDuel lineup, I have a pretty similar lineup. I actually went kind of crazy. I did Justin Thomas at 12,400, Sungjae Im at 12,100, Ben Griffin at 9,700, Christian Bezuidenhout, who I didn't talk about much, but he's really good with the putter. He did play well here last year. He finished second behind Nick Dunlap, and he was the one that took all of Nick Dunlap's money because he couldn't take it because he was an amateur, which I still laugh about and think is very funny. So Bez is 9,300. Mark Hubbard is 8,500. And then Matt McCarty is 8,000. So that is my FanDuel. I will go through Jack's bets now. I just realized he had another Denny McCarthy made cut bet, so I got to get rid of that. All right, there's a lot going on here. I'm going to try and go through all of his bets as quick as I can. So he's got Nico Echevarria, made cut, minus 200. He's got Tom Hoagie, made cut, minus 200. He's got Ben Griffin, made cut, minus 200. He's got Cam Young, he put parentheses, fraud check, LOL, top 42. That is minus 120. He's got Will Zalatoris, top 43 at minus 120. He's got Seb Straka, top 40 at plus 110. He's got Lee Hodges, who Chris actually liked a little bit there. He just didn't make sense in his lineup at top 40 at plus 125. He's got Kevin Yu, top 40 at plus 165. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. I dug into Kevin Yu and all of his data. It's so boring and not exciting. I can't tell you why Jack liked him for top 40. So maybe next week Jack will give us more details. But like he's basically breaking even on all of his major categories, and he had like one good week last week where he played well. I don't know what Jack looked at. Maybe he just looked at last week's data and really loved it. But Kevin Yu, top 40 is plus 165. He likes Keith Mitchell. Top 40 at plus 165. Then he has a bit of a flyer who I didn't highlight, but he's very good on approach and putting, so I get it. He's highlighting Antoine Rosner, who finished top 40 at plus 265. And then he liked Antoine Rosner over Victor Perez. I think that's a Frenchman's battle at plus 110. So don't quote me. I think with the two that left because they Denny withdrew, I think he's now down to like 11 or 10 bets. So hopefully with 11 to 10 bets, he gets enough wins where he'll be in good shape.
Well, I think the reason, I don't know if you said this, Kevin Yu, he picked him because he got a T3 last year.
Did he finish
at the spend?
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably why he picked him for the, what was that, a top 40?
Yeah, top 40. Plus 165, good odds. But yeah, I dug into it and I was like, there's not anything here specifically where I'm like, this is crazy. Why did he, like I need to go figure out what Kevin Yu's doing. So like, that's why I was so confused by it. All right, my bets. I'm doing 5 bets. I didn't love the betting odds this week, so I lowered them. My amount of bets, that is. I have Sungjae Im over Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim, and KH Lee. Basically, in my mind, that feels like a Sungjae Im versus Tom Kim straight up. And I got the odds at plus 125. I got Max Grazerman, top 30 at plus 110. Bear in mind, he has not finished worse than T33 in his last, 8 starts, I think I said? 14 starts. I'm sorry, I lowballed him. So his last 14 starts, he hadn't finished worse than T33. I got his top 30 at plus 110. I have Sungjae Im over Patrick Cantlay at plus 100. Again, I think Cantlay is very hyped up for this tournament. It might be rightfully so. I think Sungjae is not hyped up enough based on that number. I have Harry Hall, top 30 at plus 105. And I have Ben Griffin, top 40 at minus 105. So Harry Hall has 5 straight T14 finishes, so I've got an extra 16 spots on that one. And then Ben Griffin, what was his highlight? I forget. He has 2 starts here, T39, T45. He's got 5 straight finishes, all better than 45th. I like his odds for top 40 there. So those are my 5 bets, and we will see how they do this week. I'm going to go through. Jack has 2 wildcard picks. I have 1 wildcard pick. Then we'll hit Christian's winner, Jack's winners, and my winners. So Jack's wildcard, he has Tom Kim to miss the cut at plus 260. He is clearly not very high on Tom Kim. And then he has Keith Mitchell, Cashmere Keith. Top 20 is plus 333. My wild card is Jesper Svensson over Henrik Norlander, Vincent Norman, Christoph Ventura, and Tom Whiting at plus 200. And then Christian, who is your winner this week?
Okay, I'm going to do the obvious choice, and I'm going to just go Nick Dunlap is going to go back to back.
Okay.
Listen,
that is not the obvious choice, by the way. But
no, I would assume this is what Jack would assume that I would have picked. Like I'd pick like the thing that probably all the media, the PGA wants. I want to see him go back to back. I think that would be really cool. However, do I think it's actually going to happen? Probably not. Let's see, like a more conservative winner pick that you could put in parentheses, like probably actually, but keep mine as Nick Dunlap. I would say, who is he, like? I would not be surprised.
I feel like you liked Sungjae the moment you heard he's had.
Yeah. When you were talking about Sungjae, I was like, all those bets. I'm like, yeah, he's always like somehow in the mix. So I would love to see Sungjae get a dub this week. That would be really cool to see.
All right, those are your 2 winners picks. You've got Sungjae as your main play. You've got Nick Dunlap as your wild card. You're in.
Yeah, officially. Yeah. So we could play that in like if he does win in like 7 days. Be like, whoa, he predicted it.
Yeah, what a crazy pull from Christian. Now he's got to get back on the podcast because he picked the winner. So, just to highlight, you and Jack both do share a winner. Jack's winners are Sungjae Im, Sam Burns, and Keith Mitchell. He did put, I almost picked Grayson Sigg, but I decided not to deal with his trash. So I went with the other two. And I was like, okay, all right, whatever. We'll go with it, Jack. So those are his 3 winner picks. Mine is Justin Thomas, Max Grazerman, and Ben Griffin. I've highlighted all of them. I feel like a pretty good amount. But I don't think it is going to be... I could very well see somebody in the Grazerman Griffin category kind of win this tournament. So that is how I'm going to do it. So, all right. With that, just to highlight, next week there will not likely be a podcast. I will be traveling internationally, and so I will not have access to this. Jack, I'm sure, will be running around cross country as well. Look for potentially some TikToks, although I guess TikTok's going to get banned.
Yeah.
So maybe Instagram or like YouTube Shorts or something like that from Jack. But bear in mind, there will be no podcast next week for the Farmers. We will be back in 2 weeks for the AT&T Pebble Beach. So awesome. With that, I will leave you to it, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Deuces.
Bye, y'all.